The silver chains burned against Iris's wrists as two guards dragged her through the grand hall of the Silvercrest Pack house. Every wolf in the territory had gathered for this tribunal, their eyes following her with a mixture of horror and disgust. She kept her chin up despite the weight of their judgment, despite the raw terror clawing at her throat. 3 days ago, Luna Emilia had been found dead in the forest, her throat torn out. And somehow every piece of evidence pointed directly at Iris. Alpha Donovan stood at the head of the hall, his weathered face carved from granite, his silver hair gleaming in the firelight. Beside him stood George, the Alpha's son and heir, his powerful frame rigid with barely contained fury. George's dark eyes found hers across the crowded room, and for just a moment, Iris thought she saw something flicker in their depths, something that wasn't hatred. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. The guards forced her to her knees on the cold stone floor. Her worn dress, the simple gray uniform of an Omega servant, pooled around her. She'd served this pack faithfully for 5 years, ever since rogues had slaughtered her family and left her orphaned at 17. The Silvercrest Pack had taken her in, given her shelter and purpose, and she'd been grateful. She'd scrubbed floors and served meals and never complained, not even when the higher-ranked wolves treated her like she was invisible. "Iris Thorne," Alpha Donovan's voice boomed through the hall. "You stand accused of the murder of Luna Emilia Silvercrest. How do you plead?" "Innocent," Iris said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I would never harm the Luna. I would never harm anyone." A woman's voice cut through the murmurs rippling through the crowd. "Liar!" Iris turned to see Sabine, Emilia's younger sister, step forward from the gathered pack members. Sabine's beautiful face was twisted with grief and rage, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders like a river of fire. She'd always been kind to Iris before, always offered a smile when they passed in the corridors. Now she looked at Iris like she was looking at a monster. "What evidence do you bring, Sabine?" George asked. His voice was carefully controlled, but Iris could hear the edge beneath it, could hear the wolf prowling just beneath his skin. "I found this in her room," Sabine said, holding up a torn piece of fabric. Even from across the hall, Iris could see the distinctive silver embroidery, the pattern that had adorned Emilia's favorite cloak. "It was hidden under her mattress. And there's more." Sabine pulled out a small vial filled with dark liquid. "Wolfsbane extract, enough to weaken even the strongest wolf. The healers found traces of it in my sister's body." "I've never seen those things before," Iris protested, struggling against the chains. "Someone is framing me. Please, you have to believe me." But she could see it in their faces. They didn't believe her. Why would they? She was nobody. Just an Omega servant with no family, no status, no power. And Emilia had been their beloved Luna, gracious and beautiful and kind to everyone. Alpha Donovan's expression hardened. "Is there anyone who will speak in defense of this Omega?" Silence. The kind of silence that crushes hope and breaks spirits. Iris looked around the hall desperately, searching for even one familiar face that might show mercy. But the pack members she'd served beside for years, the wolves whose children she'd helped watch, whose homes she'd helped clean, they all looked away. All except George. The Alpha's son was staring at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. His jaw was clenched tight, his massive hands curled into fists at his sides. He was known throughout the territory as a fierce warrior, a brilliant strategist, and a wolf who would one day lead the Silvercrest Pack to even greater glory. He was also known for being impossibly distant, keeping everyone at arm's length, never taking a chosen mate despite dozens of suitable she-wolves throwing themselves at him. "Father," George said carefully, "perhaps we should investigate further before passing judgment. This evidence is circumstantial." Hope flared in Iris's chest, fragile and desperate. But Sabine whirled on him. "Circumstantial? My sister is dead, George. Murdered. And this Omega, this nothing, had the means, the opportunity, and the evidence is in her possession." "I'm not saying she's innocent," George said, his eyes still locked on Iris. "I'm saying we should be certain." "I am certain," Alpha Donovan said, his voice like a judge's gavel. "The evidence is clear. Iris Thorne, you are found guilty of the murder of Luna Emilia Silvercrest. The sentence is death. You will be executed at dawn." The words hit Iris like physical blows. Death. Dawn. She had less than 12 hours to live. "Please," she whispered. "I didn't do this. I swear on the moon goddess herself, I didn't do this." A ripple went through the crowd at her invocation of the moon goddess. It was a serious thing to swear on the goddess's name. To do so falsely was to invite divine punishment. But even that didn't sway them. The guards hauled her to her feet and began dragging her toward the cells beneath the pack house. As they pulled her past George, she caught his scent, pine and smoke, and something wild that made her wolf whimper with recognition. Their eyes met for just a heartbeat, and in that moment, Iris saw conflict raging in his dark gaze, saw something that might have been regret. Then she was past him, being dragged down the stone steps into the darkness. The cell they threw her in was small and damp, with silver bars that would prevent her from shifting. Not that it mattered. Even if she could break free, where would she run? She had no pack, no family, nowhere to go, and she'd be hunted down before she made it beyond the territory borders. Iris sank onto the narrow cot and drew her knees to her chest. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. But as the hours crawled past and the reality of her situation settled over her like a shroud, she felt the tears come anyway, silent and bitter and full of the injustice of it all. She must have dozed off at some point because when she jerked awake, the cell was darker than before. The torch in the corridor had burned down to embers, but she wasn't alone anymore. George stood outside her cell, his large frame filling the narrow corridor, his face shadowed and unreadable. Iris scrambled to her feet, her heart hammering. "Have you come to kill me yourself?" "I've come to ask you a question," he said, his voice low enough that it wouldn't carry beyond the cells. "And I need you to answer me honestly." She waited, hardly daring to breathe. "Did you kill my mother?" Mother. The word made Iris's chest tighten. She'd known Emilia was George's mother, of course, but hearing him say it, hearing the raw pain beneath his controlled exterior, made the tragedy feel even heavier. "No," she said, meeting his eyes directly. "I swear to you on everything I hold sacred, I did not kill Luna Emilia. I had no reason to hurt her. She was always kind to me." George studied her for a long moment, and Iris felt like he was looking straight into her soul, weighing every word she'd spoken, every breath she'd taken. Then he did something that shocked her to her core. He unlocked the cell door. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done hours ago," he said, stepping into the cell. "I'm listening to my instincts instead of the evidence." He moved closer, and Iris's back hit the cold stone wall. But he didn't grab her or threaten her. Instead, he reached out slowly and touched her face, his calloused fingers gentle as they traced the line of her jaw. His touch sent sparks racing across her skin, and her wolf surged forward with a desperate kind of recognition. Mate. The word whispered through her mind, ancient and undeniable. By the way George's eyes widened, his pupils dilating, she knew he felt it too. Impossible, he breathed. You feel it. I feel it, he admitted, his hand still cupping her face. But it doesn't make sense. The mate bond doesn't lie, but neither does evidence. Then trust the bond. Trust what you feel in your gut. Someone is setting me up, George. Someone wanted Emilia dead and made sure I would take the fall for it. He pulled back, running a hand through his dark hair in frustration. My father will never accept this. The pack will never accept this. They all believe you're guilty. Then help me prove I'm innocent. Please. I'm going to die at dawn unless someone believes me. George paced the small cell like a caged animal, his internal struggle written across every line of his powerful body. Finally, he stopped and looked at her with an expression that made her breath catch. Tell me everything, from the beginning. Where were you when my mother died? Relief flooded through Iris so intensely she nearly collapsed. Someone was finally listening. Someone finally wanted to hear her side. I was in the kitchens. I'd been assigned to help prepare the feast for the visiting pack delegation. I was there from dawn until well past midnight. There must be dozens of wolves who saw me. The delegation from the Nightshade Pack. My mother was found dead the morning after they arrived. Yes, and she'd seemed nervous that day. I brought her tea in the afternoon, and she was pacing in her chambers, looking out the window like she was waiting for something. Or someone. George's expression sharpened. Did she say anything to you? Iris closed her eyes, trying to recall every detail of that afternoon. She asked me if I believed in second chances, if I thought people could truly change. It seemed like an odd question at the time, but she looked so sad when she asked it. She was planning something. What do you mean? But before George could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy boots on stone. George moved with inhuman speed, stepping out of the cell and locking it behind him just as two guards rounded the corner. I came to question the prisoner, George told them coolly. She's exactly where she belongs. The guards nodded and continued their patrol. After they'd passed, George looked back at Iris through the bars, and she saw the conflict still raging in his eyes. I'll find the truth, he said quietly, whatever it takes. Then he was gone, leaving Iris alone in the darkness with a fragile thread of hope and the ghost of his touch still burning on her skin. The hours until dawn crawled by with agonizing slowness. Iris sat on the cot, her mind racing through everything that had happened. Someone had planted evidence in her room. Someone had access to Wolfsbane and Emilia's belongings. Someone had wanted the Luna dead badly enough to commit murder and frame an innocent Omega. But who? The sound of commotion from above pulled her from her thoughts. Voices raised in alarm, running feet, doors slamming. Something was happening. Minutes later, George appeared at her cell again, but this time he wasn't alone. Alpha Donovan was with him, along with several pack elders. Their expressions were grave. Open the cell, Donovan ordered the guard. The guard obeyed immediately, and Iris stood on shaking legs as they filed into the small space. She expected condemnation, expected them to tell her they'd moved up her execution. Instead, George moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Tell them what you told me, George said, about the delegation, about my mother's strange behavior. Iris repeated everything she'd told George, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. The elders listened with grave expressions, and she saw doubt beginning to creep into some of their faces. "We've been investigating," Alpha Donovan said when she finished, "and we've discovered some troubling inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" Elder Matthias, a grizzled wolf with scars crisscrossing his face, stepped forward. "The Nightshade delegation left abruptly this morning, before we could question them, and when we examined the Luna's body more carefully, we found evidence of silver poisoning in addition to the wolfsbane." "Silver poisoning?" "Someone wanted to make absolutely certain she died," George said, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. "Wolfsbane would weaken her, but silver in the bloodstream would prevent healing." "Did you have access to silver, Omega?" Donovan asked. "No, Alpha. Omegas aren't allowed to handle anything silver except for cleaning the ceremonial chalices, and those are always counted and locked away immediately after." Another elder, a woman named Helena, spoke up. "There's more. We found correspondence hidden in the Luna's chambers, letters between her and someone in the Nightshade Pack." Iris's mind raced. Emilia had been communicating secretly with the Nightshade Pack? The same pack whose delegation had arrived the day before her death? "What did the letters say?" Helena exchanged glances with the other elders before answering. "They suggest the Luna was planning to leave Silvercrest, to join the Nightshade Pack." The words fell like stones into still water, sending ripples of shock through everyone present. "That's impossible," George said, his voice rough. "My mother would never abandon the pack. Never abandon my father. This has to be a forgery." "The handwriting has been verified," Donovan said quietly. "It's hers." Iris watched as George struggled to process this revelation. She could see the pain etched across his features, the betrayal cutting deep. His mother hadn't just died. She'd been planning to leave them all behind. But something didn't add up. "If she was planning to leave," Iris said slowly, "why would someone kill her? Why not just let her go?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Then the temperature in the cell plummeted. Frost formed on the stone walls in intricate patterns, and the torches flickered wildly. Every wolf in the space felt it, the sudden presence of something ancient and powerful, something that made even an alpha bow his head in instinctive reverence. Silver light bloomed in the center of the cell, growing brighter and brighter until Iris had to shield her eyes. When she could see again, a figure stood before them. The moon goddess. She was beautiful beyond description, her form shifting between solid and ethereal, her hair flowing like liquid starlight, her eyes holding the wisdom of millennia. She wore robes that seemed woven from moonbeams themselves, and her presence filled the small cell with such power that every wolf dropped to their knees. "Rise," the goddess said, her voice like silver bells and distant thunder. "I come bearing truth." Iris struggled to her feet, her legs trembling. She'd never expected to see the moon goddess in her lifetime, let alone have her appear in a prison cell. "Iris Thorne stands falsely accused," the goddess declared, her luminous gaze sweeping over the assembled wolves. "She did not kill Luna Emilia Silvercrest." "Then who did?" George asked, his voice breaking. The goddess raised one elegant hand, and images began to play in the air like moving paintings. Iris watched in horror as the truth unfolded before them. Emilia, alive and whole, meeting with wolves from the Nightshade Pack in the forest. Emilia drinking a potion that slowed her heartbeat to almost nothing, that made her appear dead. Emilia planning her own disappearance, orchestrating every detail with cold precision. Luna Emilia faked her own death, the goddess explained. She wanted to join the Nightshade Pack and their alpha, Silas, with whom she had been conducting an affair for many months. But she knew that if she simply left, Alpha Donovan would demand her return or declare war. So she created a more permanent solution. The images shifted to show Emilia planting evidence in Iris's room, her face devoid of the kindness Iris had always seen there. Show her mixing wolfsbane into a vial, carefully leaving traces on her own clothing. Show her tearing a piece from her cloak and hiding it under Iris's mattress. She chose Iris because the Omega had no family, no allies, no one who would fight for her innocence. She believed the pack would execute Iris quickly and move on, believing justice had been served, and she would be free to start her new life without consequence. "But why?" Iris whispered. "I never did anything to her." "Because you are more than you know, child," the goddess said gently, turning her full attention to Iris. "You are the last daughter of the Moonborne bloodline, descended from my first children. Your power has been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to awaken." Emilia sensed this, even if she didn't fully understand it. She feared you would one day rise to challenge her position. The revelation sent shockwaves through Iris's entire being. Moonborne bloodline? She was just an Omega, just a servant, wasn't she? "Your parents died protecting the secret of your heritage," the goddess continued, her voice filled with ancient sadness. "They knew that if certain wolves discovered what you were, you would be in danger. But their sacrifice was not in vain. You survived, you endured, and now the truth sets you free." The images shifted one final time, showing Emilia alive and well in the Nightshade territory, laughing with Alpha Silas, completely unconcerned with the Omega she'd condemned to death. "She's alive," George growled, his voice dropping into a register that made Iris's wolf shiver with recognition. "That manipulative, cruel. Silas will answer for harboring her," Donovan said, his alpha power rolling through the cell like thunder. "This is an act of war." "Justice will be served," the goddess assured them. "But first, there are bonds to acknowledge." She looked between George and Iris with eyes that saw everything, every secret, every hidden truth. "George Silvercrest and Iris Thorne, you are fated mates. The bond you feel is genuine and eternal, but the choice to accept it must be yours." George turned to Iris, and the look in his eyes made her heart stutter. There was heat there, and possession, and something fierce and protective that called to her very soul. "I felt it the moment you were dragged into that tribunal," he said, moving closer to her. "Every instinct I had was screaming at me that something was wrong, that you were innocent. I tried to ignore it, tried to trust the evidence instead of the bond, and I almost lost you because of it." He reached out and cupped her face in his large hands, his touch gentle despite the power coiled in his frame. "I will never doubt it again," he promised. "You are mine, Iris, my mate, my equal, my future Luna, and I will spend the rest of my life making up for the fact that I let them put you in this cell." Iris felt tears spilling down her cheeks, but these were different from the bitter tears she'd cried earlier. These were tears of relief, of joy, of overwhelming emotion. "I'm nobody," she whispered, "just an Omega servant. How can I be your Luna?" "You're everything," George said fiercely, "and you were never nobody. You're Moonborne, you're powerful, you're mine." "The bond must be accepted freely," the goddess reminded them gently. Iris looked up at George, at this powerful alpha who had risked everything to believe in her, who looked at her like she was precious beyond measure. She thought about the mate bond thrumming between them, about the way her wolf had recognized him instantly, about the future spreading out before them like an unwritten story. "I accept," she said clearly. "I accept the bond. I accept you." The moment the words left her lips, the bond snapped into place with such force that both she and George gasped. It was like a golden thread had been woven through their very souls, connecting them in a way that transcended the physical. She could feel his emotions now, his relief, his fierce protectiveness, his absolute certainty that she belonged to him. And she knew he could feel hers too. George pulled her against his chest and kissed her with a passion that stole her breath. The bond flared bright and hot between them, sealing them together in a way that nothing could ever break. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Iris saw that George's eyes had turned gold, the sign of a wolf completely claimed by his mate. The moon goddess smiled, and the expression transformed her already beautiful face into something radiant. "The bond is sealed," she declared. "Iris Thorne, daughter of the Moonborne line, I restore to you the power that is your birthright." The goddess touched Iris's forehead with one luminous finger, and suddenly Iris felt power flooding through her veins like liquid fire. It was overwhelming and exhilarating, ancient magic that had been locked away inside her all her life, now breaking free. Her wolf surged forward, no longer the weak omega she'd always believed herself to be, but something magnificent and strong. Silver light erupted from her skin, illuminating the entire cell. When it faded, Iris could feel the change in herself, feel the strength in her bones, the power in her blood, the authority that came with her true heritage. "Go now," the goddess said. "Claim what is yours. Seek justice for the wrongs done against you. And remember, you are never alone. The moon watches over all her children, but especially those who bear her blood." Then, as quickly as she had appeared, the goddess vanished, leaving only a faint scent of night-blooming flowers and the lingering sense of her blessing. For a long moment, everyone in the cell simply stared at Iris. She could see the awe in their faces, the recognition of what she'd become. Even Alpha Donovan looked at her with new respect. "My Luna," Donovan said, inclining his head to her. The gesture from the powerful Alpha sent ripples through the assembled wolves. One by one, the elders bowed their heads in acknowledgement. In recognition of her power, her heritage, her rightful place at George's side. "Mine," George growled softly, pulling her back against him. "My mate. My Luna." "I don't know how to be a Luna," Iris admitted, her voice small. "You'll learn," George said. "We'll figure it out together. But first, we have a traitor to deal with." The warmth in his voice vanished, replaced by cold fury. Alpha Donovan's expression matched his son's. "Gather the warriors," Donovan commanded. "We ride for Nightshade territory at dawn. Emilia will answer for her crimes, and Alpha Silas will learn what happens when he harbors those who betray Silvercrest." The elders filed out quickly to carry out the Alpha's orders, but George remained, unwilling to let Iris out of his sight. Now that the bond was sealed, she could feel his wolf's desperate need to protect her, to keep her close, to make up for every moment she'd spent in danger. "You should rest," she told him, reaching up to touch his face. "You'll need your strength for tomorrow." "I'm not leaving you." "I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking you to rest with me." Something heated flared in George's eyes, but he banked it carefully. There would be time for that later, after justice had been served, after Emilia's betrayal had been answered. For now, he simply gathered Iris into his arms and carried her out of the cell, out of the dungeons, and up to his own chambers. The pack members they passed stopped and stared, but no one dared question the future alpha. Word of the moon goddess's appearance had already spread through the pack house like wildfire. Everyone knew that Iris was innocent, that she was Moonborne, that she was George's fated mate. In his chambers, George set her down gently on the massive bed and lay beside her, pulling her into his arms. Iris rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, feeling the bond humming between them like a song. "This morning I thought I was going to die," she murmured. "And now—" "Now you're exactly where you belong," George finished. "In my arms, in my pack, in my life." "What if Emilia comes back? What if she tries again?" George's arms tightened around her protectively. "Then I'll kill her myself. No one threatens what's mine and lives to tell about it." The possessive declaration should have frightened her, but instead it made Iris feel safe, cherished, protected. For the first time in 5 years, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. They dozed fitfully, wrapped around each other, until the first rays of dawn painted the sky pink and gold. George rose first, pressing a kiss to Iris's forehead before beginning to prepare for the confrontation ahead. "I want to come with you," Iris said, sitting up. "Absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe." "She tried to have me executed, George. I deserve to face her." He turned to look at her, conflict clear on his face. But then his eyes dropped to where silver light still flickered faintly beneath her skin, evidence of her moonborne power, and his expression shifted. "You're not the helpless Omega I thought I was protecting anymore, are you?" "I never was helpless. I just didn't know my own strength." George crossed the room in 3 long strides and kissed her hard and deep. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "Then you ride with me," he said. "But you stay close. You follow my orders, and if things get dangerous, you let me protect you. Understood?" "Understood." 2 hours later, Iris found herself mounted on a beautiful gray mare, riding at George's side as they led 50 Silvercrest warriors toward Nightshade territory. Alpha Donovan rode at the head of the column, his power radiating outward in waves that made even the trees seem to bend away from him. Someone had found Iris proper clothing, leather pants and a tunic suitable for riding, along with a cloak in the Silvercrest colors. It was strange, wearing these clothes instead of her servant's gray dress. Strange, but right. George kept glancing over at her, as if he still couldn't quite believe she was real. Each time their eyes met, the bond flared bright between them, a constant reminder of what they were to each other. They reached the Nightshade border by midday. The guards there took one look at the Silvercrest force and immediately sent for their alpha. Within minutes, Silas appeared, flanked by his own warriors. He was a handsome wolf in his prime, with dark hair and cold blue eyes that assessed the Silvercrest wolves with calculated precision. "Alpha Donovan," Silas said smoothly. "To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" "You know exactly why we're here," Donovan growled. "You harbor a traitor, a murderer. Hand over Emilia and perhaps we can resolve this without bloodshed." Something flickered in Silas's eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or calculation? "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult my intelligence," George said, his voice deadly quiet. "The moon goddess herself revealed the truth. Emilia is alive. She's here. And she will answer for her crimes." At the mention of the moon goddess, several of the Nightshade wolves shifted uneasily. It was one thing to harbor a runaway Luna. It was another thing entirely to stand against divine judgment. Silas's careful mask cracked slightly. "If Emilia is here, she came seeking sanctuary, claiming she was fleeing an abusive bond." "She lied," Donovan said flatly. "Just as she lied when she faked her own death and framed an innocent Omega for murder. just as she lied when she conducted an affair with you while still bound to me. Bring her out, Silas. Now. For a moment, Iris thought Silas might refuse, might order his warriors to attack. The tension stretched taut between the two packs, violence hovering just beneath the surface. Then a voice rang out from behind the Nightshade warriors. There's no need for dramatics. Emilia stepped through the ranks of warriors, and Iris felt rage surge through her so intensely that silver light sparked at her fingertips. This was the woman who had smiled at her in the corridors, who had asked her philosophical questions about second chances, who had calmly planted evidence that would lead to Iris's execution. Emilia looked different now. Her hair was styled differently, and she wore the finer clothes of a Luna, but there was a hardness to her beautiful face that Iris had never seen before. Or maybe it had always been there, and Iris had just been too naive to see it. I see you survived, Emilia said, looking at Iris with cold amusement. Pity. You were supposed to die quietly and let me move on with my life. George's growl was so deep and primal that several wolves instinctively stepped back. You tried to murder my mate. You betrayed your pack. You betrayed my father. Give me one reason why I shouldn't rip your throat out right now. Because you won't. You're too honorable, too bound by rules and laws. That's always been your weakness, George. You could never just take what you wanted. You don't know me as well as you think. Iris stepped forward, and immediately she felt George's protective instincts flare through the bond. But she sent her own determination back to him, a silent message that she needed to do this, needed to face the woman who had tried to destroy her. Why me? Iris asked. Of all the wolves in the pack, why did you choose me to frame? Emilia's laugh was brittle and sharp. Because you were perfect. No family, no friends, no one who would miss you. I did you a favor, really. Your life was pathetic. You should have been grateful for a quick death. Grateful? You tried to have me executed for a crime you committed. And you would have deserved it for being stupid enough not to see it coming. I left enough clues that anyone with half a brain should have been suspicious. But no, you just kept serving me tea and smiling your naive little smile. The casual cruelty in Emilia's voice made Iris's wolf snarl with rage. But she kept her control, kept her voice steady. The moon goddess saw through your lies. She revealed the truth, and now you'll face justice. The moon goddess. Emilia waved a dismissive hand. Divine intervention. How convenient. But it doesn't matter. I'm with Silas now. I'm under his protection. Silvercrest has no claim on me anymore. You're still my mate, Donovan said, his voice like gravel. Still bound to me whether you like it or not. Those bonds don't break just because you want them to. Then I'll reject them. I, Emilia Silvercrest, reject you will not. The moon goddess appeared once more, materializing between the two packs in a swirl of silver light. Her expression was stern now, lacking the gentle warmth she'd shown in the cell. She looked at Emilia with eyes that held millennia of judgment. You dare invoke rejection bonds while standing on lies and murder. You dare spit on the sacred gift of the mate bond because your selfish heart desired another. Emilia actually took a step back, fear finally breaking through her cold facade. I have the right. You have no rights here, the goddess said, her voice sharp as silver blades. You plotted murder. You framed an innocent. You abandoned your pack and your responsibilities. You have broken every sacred law of my children. The goddess raised one hand, and Emilia cried out as silver light surrounded her, bright and burning. I strip from you the title of Luna. I sever your connection to the Silvercrest pack, and I curse you to never find peace in any pack again. You will be rogue, Emilia, forever wandering, forever alone, marked by your crimes for all to see. When the light faded, Emilia collapsed to her knees. Her scent had changed. The pack bonds that had connected her to Silvercrest were gone, severed completely. And on her neck, visible to all, was a silver mark in the shape of a broken moon, a permanent brand that would tell every wolf she met exactly what she was. A murderer, a traitor, a wolf cursed by the moon goddess herself. "No," Emilia whispered. "No, please." "You showed no mercy when you condemned Iris to death," the goddess said coldly. "You will receive none now." She turned to Silas, who had gone pale. "And you, Alpha Silas, you knew she was bondmated to another. You knew she had abandoned her pack, yet you offered her sanctuary and comfort. Your judgment is clouded by lust and ambition." "I didn't know about the murder," Silas protested. "She told me she was fleeing abuse, but you didn't verify her claims, didn't question her story, didn't demand proof. You simply took what you wanted and assumed the consequences would never find you." The goddess's gaze swept over the assembled nightshade wolves. "Let this be a lesson to all who would harbor those who betray their packs. The moon sees all, the moon knows all, and the moon never forgets." Then she turned to Iris and George, and her expression softened. "Iris Thorne, you have proven yourself worthy of the Moonborne legacy. You faced death with dignity. You maintained your innocence even when none believed you. You are strong enough to lead, wise enough to judge, and brave enough to face your enemies." The goddess touched Iris's forehead once more, and power surged through her in a wave that made her gasp. When it settled, Iris could feel the change in herself, could feel the authority that now clung to her like a second skin. "I name you Luna of Silvercrest," the goddess declared. "Not by marriage alone, but by right of blood and power. Lead your pack well, daughter. Honor the gifts I have given you." Every wolf present, Silvercrest and Nightshade alike, bowed their heads in acknowledgement of the divine decree. Even Alpha Donovan lowered his head, accepting that his son's mate had been chosen by the goddess herself. George moved to Iris's side immediately, his hand finding hers and squeezing tight. Through the bond, she could feel his fierce pride, his absolute certainty that she deserved every bit of this honor. "The judgment is complete," the goddess said. "Emilia will spend the rest of her days as rogue, marked and cursed. Silas will face the shame of having harbored a traitor, and Iris will rise to her rightful place." With those final words, the goddess vanished once more, leaving only the scent of night flowers and the weight of divine justice. For a long moment, no one moved. Then George turned to Iris and dropped to one knee before her, in front of both packs, in front of everyone. "Iris Thorne, Moonborne Luna of Silvercrest," he said, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. "You are my fated mate, chosen by the goddess herself. You are my equal in all things, my partner, my other half. Will you stand beside me and lead our pack into the future?" Tears blurred Iris's vision as she looked down at this powerful alpha kneeling before her. Less than 24 hours ago, she'd been a condemned prisoner. Now she was Luna, blessed by the moon goddess, claimed by her fated mate, elevated to a position she'd never even dreamed of. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with joy. "Yes, I'll stand beside you, always." George surged to his feet and kissed her in front of everyone, claiming her mouth with a passion that left no doubt about what she meant to him. The Silvercrest wolves erupted in cheers, celebrating their new Luna, celebrating the justice that had been served, celebrating the mate bond that would strengthen their pack. When George finally released her, both of them breathing hard, he kept her tucked against his side as he addressed Silas. "You heard the moon goddess. Emilia is no longer pack. She's your problem now, if you're fool enough to keep her. But if she ever sets foot in Silvercrest territory again, I will kill her myself." Silas looked at Emilia, who was still kneeling on the ground, sobbing and clutching at the curse mark on her neck. Whatever affection he'd felt for her had clearly died in the face of divine judgment. "She's not my problem either," Silas said flatly. "She lied to me, manipulated me, brought the wrath of the moon goddess down on my pack. She can leave my territory and never return." "Silas, please," Emilia begged. "Don't abandon me. I did this for us." "You did this for yourself. You always have. Get out of my sight." Two Nightshade warriors grabbed Emilia and dragged her away from the border, away from both packs, leaving her alone in the neutral territory between. She would have to survive on her own now, marked as a traitor, cursed by the goddess, rejected by everyone who had once called her Luna. It was a fitting punishment. Alpha Donovan stepped forward and placed a hand on George's shoulder, then extended the same gesture to Iris. "The goddess has spoken. My son has found his mate. Silvercrest has a new Luna." He raised his voice so all could hear. "We return home to celebrate. Tonight, we will hold the Luna ceremony and officially welcome Iris into her rightful place." The Silvercrest wolves cheered again, and Iris found herself swept up in their joy. These wolves who had condemned her yesterday now celebrated her today. It was dizzying and overwhelming and wonderful all at once. As they rode back towards Silvercrest territory, George kept Iris close, his hand finding hers whenever possible, the bond between them singing with contentment. "I still can't believe this is real," Iris admitted. "Yesterday I was facing execution. Today, I'm Luna." "Believe it," George said, raising her hand to his lips and pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "You're mine. You're Luna. You're everything." "Everything? That's a lot of pressure." "You can handle it. You're stronger than you know, Iris. You always have been." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the Silvercrest warriors around them laughing and celebrating. The fear and tension of the morning had transformed into joy and triumph. "What happens now?" Iris asked. George smiled, and it transformed his usually stern face into something almost boyish. "Now we go home. We have the Luna ceremony tonight. You'll be formally presented to the pack and bound to the territory. Then tomorrow—" He paused, his eyes darkening with heat. "Tomorrow, we complete the mate bond properly." Iris felt her cheeks flush at the implication. The bond was sealed, yes, but there were still physical aspects that needed to be addressed. Intimate aspects that made her wolf purr with anticipation. I don't know how to... "We'll figure it out together," George promised. "I'll take care of you, Iris, in every way. for the rest of our lives." The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell. This wasn't just about duty or pack politics or even the mate bond. George genuinely cared for her, genuinely wanted to build a life with her. "I love you," she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. George reined in his horse immediately and turned to face her fully. "Say that again." "I love you, George. I think I started falling for you the moment you came to my cell, the moment you chose to believe in me when no one else would." George leaned across the space between their horses and kissed her with such tenderness that it brought tears to her eyes. "I love you too," he said against her lips. "My mate, my Luna, my everything." That night, the Silvercrest pack house blazed with light and celebration. Someone had found Iris a beautiful dress in deep blue that brought out the silver highlights in her hair. Highlights that had appeared after the goddess blessed her with her Moonborne powers. She'd been bathed and primped and fussed over by a team of pack members who were thrilled to prepare their new Luna. The ceremony took place in the Great Hall, the same room where she'd been condemned just a day before. But now, instead of chains and accusations, there were flowers and celebration. The entire pack had gathered, dressed in their finest, all of them eager to witness the official recognition of their new Luna. George stood at the front of the hall beside his father, both of them in formal dress that emphasized their power and status. When George's eyes found Iris at the back of the hall, the heat in his gaze made her shiver with anticipation. Alpha Donovan raised his hands, and the room fell silent. "Wolves of Silvercrest," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "We gather tonight to witness something rare and precious. A true mate bond, blessed by the moon goddess herself. A Luna chosen not by politics or arrangement, but by fate and divine will." He gestured to Iris, and she walked forward through the crowd, her head high despite her nervousness. George met her halfway, offering his arm and walking her the rest of the way to the front. "This is Iris Thorne," Donovan continued. "Daughter of the Moonborne bloodline, fated mate to my son George, and your new Luna." He turned to Iris, his expression solemn. "Iris Thorne, do you accept the responsibility of Luna? Do you swear to protect this pack with your life, to lead with wisdom and strength, to honor the bonds that connect us all?" Iris thought about everything she'd been through, the loss of her family, the years of servitude, the false accusation and near execution, the revelation of her heritage, the gift of George's love. "I swear it," she said firmly. "I accept the responsibility. I will protect this pack. I will lead with everything I have. I will honor the bonds and the trust you've placed in me." Donovan nodded approvingly. He produced a delicate silver circlet set with moonstones and placed it gently on Iris's head. "Then by the power vested in me as Alpha of Silvercrest, and by the blessing of the moon goddess herself, I name you Luna. May you lead with wisdom. May you love with strength. May you protect with fierceness." The pack erupted in cheers so loud that the walls seemed to shake. George pulled Iris into his arms and kissed her deeply, not caring that the entire pack was watching, not caring about anything except showing the world that she was his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, George kept her tucked against his side as pack members came forward, one by one, to pledge their loyalty to their new Luna. Each one bowed their head, each one acknowledged her authority, each one welcomed her home. It took hours, But Iris greeted each wolf with genuine warmth. These were her wolves now, her pack, her family. She would protect them with everything she had. Finally, when the last pack member had been greeted, when the celebration feast had been served and enjoyed, when the moon was high in the sky, George leaned down and whispered in her ear, "Come with me." He led her through the pack house to his chambers, their chambers now, and closed the door firmly behind them. The moment they were alone, the carefully controlled passion between them burst free. George kissed her like a man starving, like he'd been holding back all night and could finally let go. Iris kissed him back with equal fervor, her hands tangling in his dark hair, her body pressing against his. "I've wanted this since the moment I saw you," George said between kisses. "Wanted you, needed you." "Then take me," Iris whispered. "I'm yours, completely." And as George carried her to their bed, as he proceeded to show her exactly what it meant to be claimed by an alpha, as the mate bond flared bright and hot between them, Iris sent up a silent prayer of thanks to the moon goddess. "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for showing me the truth. Thank you for giving me this mate, this pack, this life." She'd gone from servant to Luna in the span of a day, from condemned prisoner to cherished mate, from nobody to somebody beloved and powerful and home. And as George whispered words of love and possession against her skin, as he marked her as his for all the world to see, Iris knew that this was only the beginning of their story. The moon goddess had given them a gift, a second chance, a future bright with possibility, and they would spend the rest of their lives making the most of it. Together. Always together. Did you like the story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, tell us which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out in the next video. Shout out from our friends in Texas, England, New York, Canada, and more. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!